there, and all the measurements keep the same. So if you have 1 centimeter, you measure it like this, 1 centimeter, or like this, 1 centimeter. Because it's cubes, we don't have to measure. We just have to make sure that this equals this. And then you can start drawing. You have retrieved 1 cube here and another one. And then these cubes stay. And then you go up and you see what happens here. You have cubes all around on this side, so these cubes stay. And then if you go to the top level, you have a cube here, like this, here like this, and then you have your 4 cubes. And here is your stairway. I have to call this one up. This is also what you see. Can you see the blue? A little bit. Okay. So this is one facade, this side, and it looks like this. This side looks like this, quick and dirty. And this is how your model looks like. So if you draw it again, you will have something like this.
What is he doing? It's just it's a drawing battle.
It's a shared workspace. So what he draws.
But now we have this basics for a model. Yes. Yes.
That's what I'm starting now.
So now we have this model. We have to keep this one as a reference. Have you drawn it? Your model? Have you drawn your model? So you have on the ground floor, we retrieve 2 squares and a stairway. On the next level, we retrieve these ones, and our stairway is here. You need to have the same drawing as I have. So you have to draw it all. So you have it as a visual reference to make the next drawing. And you just copy it. You just make sure you have the information. 2 cubes are gone. Here is the stairway. You come up here. Then you go around and go up again here, and then here are the rest of it. The thing is, what I'm trying to learn to you is the idea that you design and draw. So it's not only about the drawing, it's also about design. So in a way you have made a design of a basic architectural structure. You have everything? Now, if you have to take the paper out, you just do like me, you just fold it a little bit so you have the information. You can put it outside of your drawing area.
Niklas, fixar du knappen om man trycker på den?
This is our archive. So you need to do the same. You also need it. Oh, I don't. Okay.
Den videon. Vad är detta? Det här kan jag inte göra. Videon fryser ju.
Skylla på nätet.
Ja.
Okay. So you have. I can see you.
Ja. Jag skyller på Stefan.
Det har frysit förr och det frös ju på de här exemplen vi hade också. Så jag vet inte om det... Alltså, För Jag har inte hittat några webbexempel som inte har fysik.
Okay.
Vilken kram kör du?
Just nu kör vi 9 tror jag.
Stable.
Stable.
Now what we will do
För vi fick något konstativt fel när vi körde...
draw the situation where you stand here
Det är ju flera veckor stift ju mellan ditt
and you look
steg.
that way.
Som inte månader.
So you stand here and you look that way, and I will show you how you do it. This is
knappen.
Central perspective with one viewpoint. You draw 2 cubes or 2 squares, so you like this.
Grejer, grabbar. Alltså,
That's the
det här är
beginning.
sånt ni
You have
borde
to draw this.
skriva upp. Och vi tar med lite mer
You
rapporter.
can copy mine.
Det här var ett fälttest. Det här sakerna kommer fram. Liksom, folk tryckte på knappen hela tiden.
Ja, bra.
Ja, vi kom fram till.
Jag spelar in.
Ja, det är bra.
Okay.
Då har vi det.
And then you need this line. This is your horizon.
Skulle kunna tänka sig att man har en CFT och så. Vilket lager man har.
Men då blir det liksom tydligare. Alltså, nu här är liksom en knapp.
And then this is your vantage point. You draw it here. Yeah? And from that vantage point, you just draw the lines like this. You can complete it. You have to connect every line. Yeah. This one also. This one also. And now the trick is you have to copy this distance 2 times. So when you start from the vantage point, 1 time, 2 times, then you get a point outside of our drawing. It's always outside of the drawing. And from that point, you draw a line which crosses your model here, like this.
Johan, du får vara officiell vakt för streamen.
This defines the depth of your model.
Det är bara på den här sidan.
Drawing. If you now complete it like this, you have drawn 1 cube deep. And if you now do the diagonal like this, and you connect it like this, you draw, this is the diagonal of your square. This is the other diagonal. And if you connect the vantage point with your diagonal middle points, you get a line like this. Okay? That's okay. Now if you connect this point and this point, like this, you will get your second square. Yeah, it's okay.
Kan ställa in färger? Alltså säga att färger. Alltså det behöver inte vara olika färger. Det ska bara...
Det är inte så lätt.
Okay. Now you have this grid of cubes, and now we take our drawing back. So what we would do is draw what we see when we are standing here, looking to there. So if we count right, you have 3 cubes deep. We only have 2. So now, the same manner as we did here, we did the cube like this. We found the other one. Now we do the other way around. We do like this, and then we get our 3rd cube. So you start from this point, and you draw a line through this point.
Sätter du ljudlös då?
Va?
Ljudlös.
Ja.
To get to this point. And then again you can make it like this.
Nu har jag filmat 10 minuter, jag börjar bli trött i armarna.
Vi står fortfarande bilden.
And now the fun
Tror du
begins.
det?
we have a stair here. So the stair starts here and it goes up to here. This is your stair. And here you have another stair, this one, but it goes down. So, and how deep does it go? The depth is the same as the height of this pole. So you have, this is the depth of your stair, so you won't see the stair. The only thing you will see is the hole after it. So this will be an opening. And on the side you have walls here. These are walls, and these are walls. So you do like this. You hatch it. That's your wall on the left, and your wall on the right is here. And then if you look again at the model, you'll see on the third floor there's some cubes over here. So the ceiling will look... You have it? Yeah. Okay. Doesn't look very good though. No, it's alright. So you still need your horizon. Go down to here, like this. So, as a first convention, we call it, we always make the darkest spot of the drawing, we make it the ceiling. So the theory behind it is, if you look at this section of a building, and there's a person here, the sun comes in like this, so the ceiling never receives sunlight, so that will be the darkest part of your drawing.
Här är ganska avancerat.
And then, as I have shown, the sun comes in like this, so you just mimic that by drawing a line like this, copying this point to here, and drawing a line like this.
Var det inte den här datorn som var?
Jag vet inte utan vad
problem.
Just do the same
Vi
thing.
fick inte formatera om datorerna som vi fick.
Ja, det verkar som att det drar lite mer efter ett tag.
Varför då?
Jag räddar lite se och typ bara programmet, jag vet inte vad det är som gör det. Men det är som att från början drar det bara 40%, efter ett tag börjar det 80%.
This is where the sun comes in on the other side. So you have this point.
Så nu är det bra transform.
Ja, transformen är riktigt bra.
This is your shadow here.
Tanken är att vi ska bryta strax, så vi ska ha en diskussion om slutsatser och som det fungerar och liksom nästa steg sådär.
Okay.
So this is a bit how it would look like if the sun would shine in it. But maybe it's more interesting to do another drawing, to make another space, yes?
So the idea now is perhaps, or in a moment when you feel ready, to have a discussion, is this working, what's not working?
Okay.
And
So maybe there's some natural moments.
Maybe this is a good moment, yes.
Okay.
so and we can continue more afterwards. So that's
Okay.
So the idea is.
Okay.
So the idea is if everyone goes.
There's a classroom looking at you like this, or they're all drawing. So when the classroom is looking at you like this, I don't understand. So you do it again and you try to explain why certain things are because they are like that. So I looked for eye contact or contact in the screen, and sometimes it wasn't working, but that's technical. But I noticed you didn't look at me. You only looked at the drawing.
Yeah, I mostly looked at the drawing, but it's great to be able to point at stuff. I mean, if you're on a blackboard, I have to walk up to the beside you.
One of the problems we now are seeing is we are a generation which I come from a generation which isn't used to drawing on a blackboard. So it always fails when I try to show something to the students on a blackboard. It always comes out not like I want to. So in the end, I always say, come around my table, and then I do a normal drawing on the table, and then they're like, okay, now we understand. But so now we're thinking about a bit the same setup, filming from on top and projecting it on a screen, so people can more easily see, and I can draw the way I'm used to. Because it takes another thing. So I found that too. It's interesting. The only thing I sensed when showing you stuff was, in the end, you're copying my drawing. So as a learning experience, it fails a bit because you don't encounter with the problems you normally encounter with. Looking at your drawing now, it's funny to see there's stuff not going very well. So in the copy, it's possible that it's not copied in the right way. You can see it in the stair, it's a bit too steep. My stair is different than his. So.
And then I noticed that, of course, the alignment is not always perfect between the two, and there's little, moving a little bit, of course. Yes, it's a prototype setup, so that makes sense. But how was that affect? I can imagine that this is affecting the drawing, but how was this affecting the experience as such? Again, from teaching and from drawing. And the other question I have is, you said you were copying. Was it a problem because you didn't understand what you needed to do? Because it was, of course, noisy. We didn't provide any instructions at such.
If I were to draw on my own, I would have to have another paper to draw somewhere else.
Why is that?
Well, because you're drawing, I can see everything you draw in the middle of my paper. So if I have to draw a separate copy.
So maybe what you would need is in front of you my drawing.
Yeah, maybe.
And then you have to do what I'm doing on the
or next to each other. I mean,
or next to
you just have a bigger share.
Because I think you don't need my face when I'm talking to you and drawing.
Not really.
No, it's.
Doesn't it provide some comfort that you know that he is there?
Of course, to be able to look up and talk to him.
But also, you mean, there's sort of having more of a split where you say, well, I'll draw on the right side and he draws on the left side. Same like drawing area, but just divided up.
Yeah, well, that's possible. That's even possible in the same. I think.
Yeah, that's what I mean. In the current setup, it could be done. So.
But it's also a question of a matter of agreement that you say, okay, I do the left side, you do the right side. Right. You can still interfere in another one's drawing then. As opposed to saying, okay, you get a projection here and I get a projection there.
We didn't use the feature, but you can turn off the video stream, so you don't have to see what I'm doing. I can just look at it.
Well, normally I have to see what you are doing, so I can say, this is where you go wrong, or this is where you make a mistake.
So how normally you would do it, you give an example, you draw an example, and you ask the students to replicate it.
No, normally what we do, that's the whole idea of the exercise. Everybody has a different model, so they can't copy. That was the whole idea. So normally you have, okay, this is a cube, this is how you draw a cube in perspective, and everybody has the same cube in perspective, which is good enough to learn how to draw. But then you end up drawing cubes for weeks and weeks in a row, not really knowing what you were doing. So we changed it and started really drawing a design, and by drawing, changing the design also. So the experience is not only about learning how to draw, but also about learning how to develop a space, what is the important stuff, how to position yourself as a draftsman into a space to make a nice perspective drawing. So that's. But everybody has a difference. So you have to listen. You have to listen to the mathematics of how the drawing works. This is what we did, and then you have to position yourself in your own drawing. And for us as a teacher, it's quite simple because it's cubes. So we just have to count cubes in a grid of a drawn grid of cubes. Yeah. So you can easily say you just have 3 cubes and then your stair goes down. Oh yes, sure. So that's easy for everyone.
So, but this might be the. It wasn't a thing that you were replicating exactly his image. That was part of. You could have arranged this better if you explained a little bit clear how it was working. So I think this is it. But now back to the other, because the lines were not always correctly. Was that a problem? for you as a student?
Well, sometimes it's a lot of lines, so it's
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Well, it's a bit maybe my mistake. I should have taken things to fill vlakken.
Squares?
Well, squares, to fill squares up in a full color. Now I use lines to make a distinction between this plane and this plane and this plane. And maybe I didn't explain that right to you. So
yeah, I understood it, but it was
well, it becomes blurry for
yeah,
you, so it's
exactly.
not interesting. So that's something good to know for me also, for a next setup.
Okay.
Just maybe take black paint or something and paint it up.
Why only using black? You could also use colors.
Yeah, sure. I can take color markers.
So I was just thinking that these are the highlight pens, that perhaps not that
But then
heavy visible.
You have special design
Okay.
Pantone pens you can
Yeah,
use,
okay.
so they're quite thick and it goes quickly. So, but then again, it's not the idea is I do a presentation of how a drawing is made, and then you have to make your own. So it's not that you have to copy my color codes and stuff like that. So it's a question of understanding how to make this perspective work. And normally, maybe for the next setup that would be interesting, I take 2 sets of cubes so we have the same setup in front of us.
Yeah.
Because then we can look at the model, the existing model, and negotiate that also.
Yeah. I see. You started by, when we started, can we use a thin pen? How important is having a thin versus a thick pen? Does it matter? Is it more kind of thin?
Well, normally you draw with a charcoal pencil, with a pencil.
Right.
That's how we normally start, because if you would take a student like himself and say, okay, this is your drawing paper, and you have a thick pen, every mistake he makes will be punished directly, because it's there and you can't erase it. So I also saw it with my son. He learns how to write now, and they do it with pencils also for the same reason.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a good thing, but that's a different discussion.
So it is actually quite important to also
Well,
to
it
support
would
at
be.
some point
I
a
think
thin line.
for the student it would be nicer to have a pencil to draw. So if there's a mistake, you just can erase it.
Yeah. Okay.
And I can show also this line. You should put it here or there, and then they can erase it. On the other hand, I ask never to erase, to just leave the mistakes on the drawing, because it's more interesting.
Yeah.
And I always say to my students, if you erase something, you lose in fact more time than redrawing it. So, and you can always work around those mistakes. That's something you have to learn when you're drawing. But I think it would be more interesting to have a thinner medium to draw with. For myself, I always draw with a pen, so the thick pens are for filling in gaps or. But maybe it's something with the system. I don't know.
I think you can.
Is it possible?
I think that was actually a question for the students, perhaps. Any experience?
We got it to work with the right settings. You can sometimes see, but the light is shifted so much here, so it's really hard to see.
So it's a matter of lighting. Probably this will be a bit of grey paper. So if you have probably some more white paper, it's better, perhaps.
Yeah.
So probably you should be able to do it, but then in specific lighting conditions. Yeah.
Maybe it's something interesting to look into, which color of paper works best with which color of pen you work on. So maybe you can rediscover that a red pen on a white paper works best. So that's okay.
And we're only using about half of the canvas resolution. So yes,
That's true. Yeah.
Okay, well that would be interesting.
Yeah.
You need the best resolution possible for these kind of things, I think.
yes.
And the reason for that is
Well, it gets slow.
Okay.
There are many ways to improve it. It gets faster and everything.
but is the bandwidth issue or
Well, it's
HTML5?
both all the calculations we do. It's going to take a long time.
But calculations will be much faster if you use WebGL to do it.
Yes, it's
All right.
possible
Yeah,
to do it much more.
Okay. Now it's on in JavaScript.
Can I have a there's coffee for you now, and the question is whether you want to drink it now, because then the lunch people are sitting at the same table. So look, for you to grab a coffee now.
Two more questions.
Yeah,
I have two more questions. Then we're
Time here, I think, and then we're ready to.
just would have coffee in 5 minutes. The other, I think, from an experience perspective, at least I noticed two more things. One was that somebody flipped back a paper, and then you said, "Oh, this is clever."
Yes.
I'm not. I don't. Can you elaborate on it, because I didn't fully understand what was happening, but it was something new and it was helping the process, I think.
For me, it was interesting to see flipping back the paper and having the full projection of his drawing, so I could assess his drawing.
Okay.
That was interesting. On the other hand, the other thing we did was I flipped the paper back so he could see my drawing and copy it as the line drawing he made there. So you don't have. This is the whole construction. What we normally do is take tracing paper, put it on top of it, and then do a drawing like that in order to make shadows and even furniture or something. So it was interesting that we had this mode without the tracing paper, because that was the first thing I asked. Have tracing paper, and then somebody said you can flip it back, and so it works. So it even would work in that way that if he copied my drawing, I could project his drawing and copy his again, so we have again the same drawing.
Sorry, yeah.
We were also thinking of having the feature that you could save the current workspace, like as a file, and then add it as an overlay. And work on it. That'd be useful too, maybe.
That would be interesting. Then you have like this history like in Photoshop. You have states where you can return to.
Maybe it's nice. Maybe you can show this when we have coffee. So in a minute, is it?
We can't show it.
Oh, you can. Okay.
We still have to incorporate it.
Okay. I thought it was. Okay. And did you notice as a student that the paper was being?
Yeah, I could see it moving.
Okay. And then, at least my last question from experience or observation was delay. The delay. If you move your hands, I had the impression it didn't pose any problems.
No, not really.
No, it's even. Well, the delay is not a problem, but what is interesting, you can see the speed of your student working. So you can see, am I going too fast or am I going too slow?
Okay.
Most of the time I go too fast, so I can see how the drawing is developing. So, and the speed of the hand is not important, I just assess the whole drawing. This is the state where he is in, so I could flip back and see on the white paper what he is doing then. So no, it's not a problem. Not for this kind of work. I don't think.
No, that's actually interesting, because yesterday at dinner we were talking about delays, and Satinder was integrating rhythm for activities, if I say it correctly. And he was talking about, 2-second delay is devastating. But I'm not sure how. I'm not saying that the delay was here 2 seconds, but it's a considerable.
Is it in music?
Yeah, it's
rhythm
in
music, but it's impossible even. It's like you.
In music, yes.
Music is.
It's impossible. Every even the smallest delay is impossible.
Because it's interesting to notice that here is not such a problem. It can even be beneficial at some.
Yeah.
Because I also saw that moving the hand is also providing directional information, where you're going or where you're coming from. From a student, because I was looking at both, and as a student I saw, hang on, because I'm not I can't draw at all, but understanding what you were doing and where your hand is going and where it was coming from was quite helpful, especially when you were drawing the perspectives. Because when you were talking, went faster than your hand moving.
Okay.
So in that perspective, it might be helpful.
How about the virtual button? I don't think you even noticed.
No, did something happen with it? The virtual
button? So the virtual button is to turn off turn off yours, right? Yeah.
The thing you had to put your hand on. I didn't quite understand what it did.
We didn't explain it. Well, we should have done that. But what happened was when you turn the paper, you touch the button. So then you just have to touch it again to bring back the video.
But if you touch the button, the projection of what he is doing disappears.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you push it again, and then.
Yeah.
But that's interesting.
Let's have a look at it. Get a coffee.
No, I have more questions. Be still.
We come back.
I was thinking, because related to the drawing, the teacher and the student, you are both in the same location, which is not normally the case, because you sit next to each other, so you don't have. Did you reflect on that you saw it from the exact same angle?
That you draw on top of each other.
Yeah, and you were actually seeing exactly what the student sees from the same
Normally
angle.
it isn't, no. But the only thing I feel that for the kind of thing we were doing is the idea that he's merely copying, tracing my drawing. So that's the only thing I would be careful for. But to be in the same space, I think it's even a good thing, because you can really draw on top of each other's drawing.
But do you think also it would be possible to develop exercises or pedagogy that would make benefit of this, and not just copying?
So, yes. And it triggers something, because it would be interesting to have like this kind of methods for at least some stuff you have to learn, because there's well, I'm becoming very academic now, but we don't have the time we used to have to teach drawing, and a lot of things which are interesting to learn, we don't have time for anymore. So this would be an interesting thing to think about if you want to learn them anyway. That you provide a setup like this, and you can follow something which is projected maybe on your table. Maybe I really don't have to be there anymore. So it's just pre-record it, and you can look at it using the same kind of setups maybe. So it could be interesting, or maybe as a remote class for people being interested in taking the class.
But do you, as a teacher, do you feel limitations here, that you cannot really do what you want, or do you also see that this could give an added value which you cannot do in the same physical space?
I think added value, I don't know, but I think it would be a good thing like this. I think it would work. This was the quickest way I could think of doing what I normally do. So I left some open things, which made it more difficult for him to follow, because normally you really have to explain where does it come from, why do you do it. There's some introductory exercises, but you can do them on your own. So you can maybe if you develop a course based on this, you have an assignment before you go into course, and then if you did those you can do this kind of thing, and then you go home again, or you don't, you are at home. So then you start exercising the stuff, and then you can take the second course and things like that. So there are possibilities, sure. Yeah.
So, do you have any reflections? What do you think?
I was just wondering what you talked about earlier. Did you say that you used actual cubes for part of it? Because, well, you could use that here as well. I think it would work well.
I think so too. Yeah. So I promise next time I bring 2 sets of cubes, so we can start playing the same sets of cubes.
Yeah.
Because then
but wouldn't it be a problem that the view right now is totally from the top.
Yeah.
So if you just stack them on top of each other, if it is perfectly aligned,
yeah, you can take them in your hand and turn them around.
But you still have the camera looking at you. I mean, you can just adjust it so you can see the desk in front of you.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, that's what I was getting. I mean, you have to work a bit with that. So good question. Any other questions, comments, any reflections? I mean, did you learn anything new here, or just the same problems as you already knew?
Maybe we should take the coffee, and after that we'll gather again, because then we will have made some new reflections and we can share it.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Okay, let's do that.
Okay.